Hi, welcome to the next edition of Competitive List. Today I got 3 decks again to talk about. So we're gonna get right into this. We have, like I said, 3 sweet decks. One of which we kind of covered recently, but it's a different take on it. That's not really meta, but hopefully we'll by the end of this streamline new decks that I keep talking about. It becomes meta and it replaces one of the bad decks at the top. I'm kidding, but not really. So the play patterns of these decks I think are actually kind of fun and interesting, and they're different in Pioneer. So we're gonna get right into it. If you guys like this series, make sure you let me know down in the comment section. Hit that like button, subscribe, hit that bell notification so you go for future videos. We're on our way to 1,000 subs. We're about 80 out. Let's get there together and let's get into these deck lists and break them down. So first on my list is the deck we sort of talked about recently. There was a different Insidious Roots deck that won a 5-0. This deck, of course, still plays the Gorehound, Supplier, Priest. It picks up more Scroungers, I believe, and the Cat Oven Loop. Now this deck also wants to play the Emergence because it does want to reanimate the Roots or the Oven depending on the situation. So it definitely is a lot more, interesting in that regard. We also play a Westville Abbey, which is kind of based, not even gonna lie, making that backside and just smacking in with the 9/7. Pretty awesome. Another new card this deck is picking up is the Honest Runestein. I don't necessarily think it's that great of a card, but it does definitely help because it loops with your roots every time you bring something back. If you do have two Honest Runesteins, you might be able to go technically semi-infinite if you can keep producing the mana to cast it, but this deck is trying to use Call of the Death Dweller to get 2 things back. Agatha Soul Cauldron. We have our activated abilities mainly with Priest. That seems to be the only main one, but overall it's a pretty sweet deck. Tyvar 4 copies still. So like we do have a decent amount of targets for Tyvar. But sideboard, we do have 2 Fatal Pushes for the aggro matchup, 2 Damping Spheres for Lotus Field, 4 Pick Your Poisons for the Vampire matchup, 3 Thoughtseizes we could bring in against Control and Combo, a Haywire Might, which is really great underneath a Cauldron. Also, I mean, you could just reanimate it and just exile something else. We have 2 Knights of the Dust Shadow, good against Amalia. And of course, all these things can be get back by Tyvar, which is just really strong. And it's primarily why you use efficient 1 or 2 drops in your Tyvar deck, of course, because if you can keep reanimating and reusing them, they are much more effective at what they do. And just, reanimating a knight can shut down a Molly to the point where you might be able to take the game. So that is the first deck. We kind of went into a little bit more detail in the previous video, talking about it. This one did drop the skeleton combo that could be in the deck. I'm assuming for the Scrap Heap Scrounger instead. With Scrounger's a better body, so it's better attacking. So your plan B is a little bit better. Also, this deck is not playing the new skeleton that commit crime, and you keep reanimating it. But that's okay. Let's get into the next 2 lists, which are interesting in their own right. Next on my list is a deck that was 5-0'd by Doomwake. Now, I was technically in the live stream while he was playing this. I left before he finished. It's glad to see that he managed to get a 5-0. So if you're interested in watching the gameplay for this deck, definitely check out his YouTube channel or his Twitch channel. Doomwake with 2 zeros instead of O's. So check him out. This deck, of course, since Grelf, the Flesh Right, technically is kind of like an extra copy of Mentor, but I think it's actually better than Mentor just because of the fact that usually when you're trying to go off with and get the tokens, you kind of deplete your hand a little bit. So it's best that you get all of the power up front and go from there, right? So that way it just makes your situation's better, right? Because you want to storm off to make as many tokens as you can with Mentor. But if you deplete your hand making all the tokens, then you don't have any to trigger prowess. So Dralf actually kind of fixes that problem. So you can storm off, make as many zombies as you can. They all become huge. or decently sized zombies, and you get to attack. So this deck is kind of like a standard deck that is hit or miss in the current format. I've seen it around. Helping Hand to get back the Mentor or your Shredder. Now, he did make some tweaks during the live stream, like adding the Picklock Prickster as a couple copies. I actually think maybe you want to add one more, but I'm not exactly sure what you would cut for it. And then, of course, like the deck also has, pretty much the sleight of hand, the opt, the consider. So it really tries to maximize on treasure cruise, except for the 2 Picklock pranksters, right? That's like the best card with treasure cruise. 19 lands, only 1 utility land, which is definitely could be a problem, I guess, outside of Otawara. But if you ever get dealt with a Wrath, you might be taking too much of a hit there. Sideboard, he has 2 March of the Otherworldly Lights, kind of a good catch-all removal spell. We have 2 Silences for the combo matchups, like, Phoenix, also, Lotus Field, Contorious, stuff like that. 2 Spell Pierces to help protect our threats from removal. And to make it a tempo deck. 2 Strokes for, mid-range control, stuff like that, where they have a 4-drop like Shieldred or counter spells that are, also Contorious is kind of nice to have that. 3 Hearses for the Graveyard Hate against Phoenix. 1 Get Lost, kind of a catch-all removal spell. Kills a Shredder, kills pretty much anything you could think of, except for artifacts. So that's pretty nice. And Torpor Orb, it's just a reasonable artifact to have in your deck. It got printed in the newest Big Score set. So it's kind of sweet that it's in Pioneer. And it doesn't really necessarily affect our game plan at all, because it's cast triggers, right? So that doesn't matter about ETB. So that's pretty good. So, yeah. So we also have an Ashiok, which is really good right now because it hits the graveyards. It prevents Lotus Field from tutoring up from their ultimatum, and it stops like Quintorius from getting their lands. So there's a lot of flexibility in Ashiok and Torpor Orb within the current meta of Pioneer. That is Blue-White Helping Hand Reanimator for Pioneer. Let's get into the last list. So the last deck I'm going to talk about is Rakdos Legends, which is quite interesting as a concept as a whole. This one was 5-0'd by Salty Nick. So if you ever want to go see his channel, I would recommend it. He's a pretty good dude. He's also in like the main person for PNLR, some few other decks. He has so he does pretty decent content on Twitch. So look up for Salty Saint Nick, I think is his name. So check him out. So this deck, like I said, is trying to use all the legends with Tiny Bones, Ashnod. So Tiny Bones is brand new. The Tiny Bones joins up is brand new. Karavek, the Punisher, is brand new. We have our cheap spells with Thoughtseize and Fatal Push, which is really powerful. Mox Amber, just so since we are a Legends deck, it makes perfect sense to have that. Be a Plaza Hero, so this deck doesn't really get the advantage of having a card like Rafine, though. Like, they didn't really print a good, Grixis or Jund legendary creature that makes sense in this, like, this kind of archetype. Because I believe those were like 7 drops and 6 drops. Xander and the other dude, the Dragon Demon. So it definitely takes a hit that there's not like a Rafine or a powerful 3-drop. That's all 3 colors that are multicolor that could tie this deck together. That could actually care more about legends. But it's quite sweet that this deck is utilizing multiple legends. And with sweet interaction is the Kari Zev makes a legendary token called Ragavan, which happens to trigger the Tiny Bones joins up. So keep that in mind if you try picking this deck up. All these decks are in the description, like always. Sideboard, though, we do have some Duresses, in case we want to cut the Fatal Pushes against Control and Combo. 2 Blowouts, Blot Out for the Vampire matchup, pretty good there. 3 Volleys, kind of a catch-all for, Amalia, decent against like Fang, decent against spirits, anything like that. We have 1 cage to stop Collect the Company, Cord, and the Phoenix, and also a few other scenarios where it's relevant. 3 Damping Spheres for Lotus Field, 1 Shieldred, also pretty good against Lotus Field, because we basically drain them every time they draw, also good against Phoenix, and it's just a decent threat overall. 2 Lilies for the control matchup, mid-range matchup, where it's really a grind fest, and we just kind of want to deplete their hand. We have a Quakebringer, but keep in mind Lily is not good, however, against Waste Not. We have a Quakebringer, also pretty good against Amalia, and it's a giant, and it's not a legend, which is kind of sad. But that is Rakdos Legends for Pioneer. That's all I have to talk about. Which deck was your favorite? Let me know all that down in the comment section. And until next time, hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Talk to you soon.